What if more people had a say in what scientific research gets funded? Not just governments, universities, and large institutions, but researchers, patients, donors, engineers, and curious people from around the world helping shape the direction of science together. That is the basic idea behind a Science DAO, an internet-native community that pools resources, makes collective decisions, and supports research in areas they believe deserve more attention. And here's something that's already happened. A global internet community, the Quantum Biology DAO, raised $6.8 million to help fund new scientific research and is actually funding a real lab today. These organizations are part of a larger movement called DeSci, or decentralized science. Think of DeSci as the umbrella, an effort to fund, organize, publish, and advance science in a new way. So Science DAOs are a funding arm of that movement. Communities pool money and vote together on what research gets a shot, rather than leaving it to a select few. Depending on who you ask, Science DAOs are either one of the more interesting things to come into modern science, or a clever idea that came out of the crypto world that still has a lot to prove. So instead of treating this as hype or outright dismissing it, let's take a look at what these organizations are actually trying to do. So what is a Science DAO? Let's get into it. First, it helps to understand the problem that they're solving. Let's say that you're a researcher with an idea, a new longevity intervention, a therapy for rare disease, a new neuroscience tool, or maybe even an entirely new field of study. Your options are fairly limited. You can apply for grants, work through a university, chase philanthropic support, or convince investors that your research could eventually become a marketable product. And just so we're clear, this system isn't broken. It's the same pipeline that gave us vaccines, space exploration, and modern medicine. Science works, but getting funding is genuinely hard. Grant applications can take months to write, the funding pool is brutally competitive, and some research ideas fall into an awkward gap. Too early stage for investors, too unconventional for a traditional grant committee, or maybe too interdisciplinary to live inside of just one university department. And this is especially true for emerging fields. Before a field has a long track record, standardized methods, obvious commercial applications, and a large body of published work, it can be hard to convince traditional funders to take the first risk. That gap is where Science DAOs found their opening. So let's get into Science DAOs, but first let's define what a DAO is. DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and the mechanics are pretty simple. Members propose ideas publicly, the group debates them in the open, and votes decide what happens next. The whole process, the proposals, the discussion, and the final votes, all happen online instead of behind closed doors, and anyone holding the right token can take part from anywhere. And this model spread fast once it caught on. Some DAOs pool capital to acquire art collectively, some function as investment clubs for early-stage startup, and one DAO famously tried to outbid a hedge fund for an original copy of the US Constitution. And some DAOs focus on science, aka Science DAOs. So thus, a Science DAO is a community that uses DAO-style coordination to advance scientific research. That can mean funding research, supporting scientists, creating grants, building scientific tools, launching experiments, commercializing discoveries, or educating the public. The mission really depends on the DAO. The members propose the ideas, communities discuss them, resources get allocated, and projects actually happen. It's essentially a new way for people to coordinate around scientific progress. Interestingly enough, most DAOs grew out of the Web3 and blockchain world, and many Science DAOs use tokens, public ledgers, crypto wallets, on-chain treasuries, and governance platforms. And after a decade of crypto hype cycles, it's reasonable that there might be some skepticism. But in this context, the useful idea is pretty straightforward. A community can raise funds globally, track treasury activity publicly, vote on proposals, and coordinate around shared scientific goals without needing everybody to be in the same institution or even country. So how does a Science DAO actually get money? There are a few different models. Some raise money through token sales, some receive donations, some get grants, some form partnerships with foundations, companies, or research institutions, and some use a combination. The most crypto-native version is a token sale. A token sale means that the DAO sells a batch of digital tokens to supporters, and those tokens can sometimes give holders governance rights, meaning the ability to vote on proposals or participate in decision-making. And this is not exactly the same as, say, a company going public. In a public stock offering, people are buying equity in a company under a specific legal and financial framework. In many DAO token sales, people are buying governance tokens, participation rights, or access to a network. The legal structure can vary a lot, and it's important not to blur those categories. A simpler way to think about it is this. A token sale can function a bit like global crowdfunding, but with governance attached. This is what the Quantum Biology DAO did in 2024. It sold QBio tokens through their bioprotocol launchpad and raised roughly $6.8 million. And from that, the community decides how those resources are used. It could be for research grants, scientific equipment, operations, events, education, outreach, or some completely new scientific initiative. So here's where things get interesting, because science DAOs aren't just theoretical. Our ecosystem at the Quantum Biology DAO is a useful anchor to see how this model works in action. As mentioned earlier, the DAO raised money, and we've committed a large amount of that funding to help support the Quantum Biology Institute. Our grants are to support foundational research into their hypothesis, the idea that quantum states inside living cells may last long enough to influence biological function. And there are other science DAOs running similar models in different fields. Vita DAO applies it to longevity science. Athena DAO applies this to women's health, an area that has historically received less dedicated research attention than you think it should probably have. Valley DAO applies this model to synthetic biology and climate-focused biotech. These are different fields answering different open questions, but are operating under a similar mechanism. A community decides together what gets a chance to be tested. A common misconception is that science DAOs are just anonymous internet users voting on science that they don't understand. In practice, most proposals go through some form of scientific review by a dedicated science team, external advisors, or domain specialists before they ever reach a community-wide vote. The vote finalizes a funding decision. It doesn't replace expert evaluation. These communities typically include scientists, researchers, engineers, builders, patients with a direct stake in what's being studied, and funders alongside more general community members. So are science DAOs the future of how research gets funded? I don't think we have the answer to that quite yet. Some have failed, some haven't, some will, and some won't. Others may evolve into durable scientific institutions in their own right. It's early, which is exactly what makes it worth tracking. For science DAOs to work, the science has to lead. The token can't become more important than the research. A community shouldn't confuse excitement with actual evidence. And transparency has to include not only the wins, but the uncertainty, the failures, and negative results. The internet has changed how we communicate. Open source software has been changing how we build technology. And science DAOs are testing whether internet coordination can change how research gets funded and conducted. Could be yes, could be no. Either way, thousands of researchers, builders, and contributors worldwide are already running the experiment. If you want to keep following where this goes, make sure to subscribe to our channel, check out the links below, and if you're particularly interested in quantum biology, make sure to check out our Discord community. It's really cool. Check it out. Because some of the biggest breakthroughs start with one simple question. What if there was another way?